Okie doke. Well, let's get started. So first off, I would like to say thanks to everybody and thanks to our sponsors for being here. And of course, thanks to all our presenters today. It's not a small ask to request folks to give up their personal time, that being usually most everybody's Saturday, to come on in and share some elements of knowledge, if you will. So truly appreciate all my friends who are coming in and presenting today. So thank you to Sonia and to Bill Dittmar, who will be with us in a minute, and to Keith Reynolds and to Chandran Thornburg, and to Dr. Liwei Chen from ODU. So thank you all for giving of your knowledge and giving of your time today. Like the big screen share is showing, thanks to our sponsors. So Old Dominion University is with the Professional Development Consortium pretty much every step of the way, from board support to when we're not COVIDing, they provide us space throughout the year, as also an academic check. Professional Development Consortium of Hampton Roads is an educational platform, and we're truly grateful to have ODU by our side, kind of checking our work, if you will. So, vast collection of doctors checking in. I also like to thank Cape Henry Associates for their support as well. Cape Henry Associates is a service-disabled, veteran-owned small business specializing in manpower analysis, personnel analysis, and training services. And finally, last but not least, Synergy by Design. Thank you also for sponsoring us today. Synergy by Design is your human resources partner for payroll, compliance, employee engagement, and strategic planning. As I forgot to mention, Cape Henry is represented by Ed Myers here today with us, and Synergy by Design is represented by Bill Pearsall. So thank you both for showing up. So with that, what I'd like to do is take a few minutes here and kind of set a baseline for the day and what we'll be talking about. So I'm a big, the engineer in me is a big fan of cycles. The Professional Development Consortium of Hampton Roads is really built to support that annual cycle of management and leadership for membership associations. And for those who aren't familiar, membership associations are any group of people organized around a common interest. I probably should say formally or semi-formally organized around a common interest, where their primary focus is for the good of their membership and the good of whatever that interest area is in there. So the folks who lead these organizations are usually volunteers in that role, giving mightily of their time, doing this, doing their leadership work, doing their management work, normally after hours, typically have a day job or something else that keeps them busy. So they're putting on events and connecting with members and all kinds of stuff, all year long, and for little reward other than the joy and love of what they're doing. So I think about Professional Development Consortium, or PDCHR, as a place to connect, coordinate, and collaborate on leadership challenges that are very much associated with running a membership organization. So there's some challenges and some goals there that are different from other organizations. So we teach to a business model that I'm going to share here in a second. And we, in our discussions this morning, we'll actually follow or dig deep into a couple of those or actually all of those, I think the 5 key areas associated with running a membership association. So one other thing before I get us moving on this on the cycle and kind of a little bit of ground setting, we'll ask. There's not a ton of us in here today so far, so I'll still ask that folks put their questions in the chat box. It helps us keep a record of that. What we'll do for each of the presenters is, generally speaking, each will talk for about 12 minutes, present some nuggets in a particular area, might call for some audience interaction in the interim. But if you have other questions that pop up, I'm going to ask you to put them in the chat box. And at the end of their 12 minutes or so, then I will go through the chat box and we'll pull out the questions and share them, give the presenter a chance to answer that. So with that, I'll keep moving here. So let me present the model by which PDCHR thinks about membership associations. So generally speaking, but not universally, membership associations have programs or services that they do something on a regular basis to add value to the members in attendance. So having a set of programs and services laid out over a decent amount of time, I think is incredibly important as a basis for everything else that happens in a given membership association. Targeting your communications is really about, instead of, or in addition to perhaps billboard-like advertisements where you're going out saying a little bit to everybody. Another characteristic of successful membership associations is sending very precise messages to smaller groups, a better chance of bringing about that desired action, whatever that might be. Membership engagement, you've probably all heard this if you're associated with membership groups, is like engage your members. Well, that can mean an awful lot of things, in terms of volunteerism, networking, connecting with others, finding out what they want and what they need. So it's a very, very broad stroke. Keith Reynolds is going to talk about one area in particular that's maybe overlooked a little bit, but incredibly important. Growing your volunteers and leaders. So sustainability of your membership association is dependent very heavily on leadership renewal. So one of the things that kind of kills off membership associations that I've seen is we don't have enough rotation in the leadership. You wind up as treasurer and you're there forever until you reluctantly become president, and then you stay in that position until you're burned out. And that's the kind of characteristic that kind of kills off membership associations, a real struggle. So being deliberate about taking membership, some of those turning them into volunteers and some of those into leaders on a regular basis is a pretty significant thing to do. And Chandran will talk to us a little bit about that. And then finally, refreshing your strategy or managing your strategy or maintaining some semblance of strategic thinking is important, because when we think about that last stuff about rotating your leaders, instead of reinventing the organization every year as the board changes or every time the board changes, there's value to having a longer term strategy to guide the new board, as well as to how to deal with surprises. It's like, well, according to our strategy, this guides our decision making. So leeway, we'll talk about that finally. So we're going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to turn the platform, if you will, over to my friend Soumya Dwivedi Burks. So Soumya, you're on, and take us through cultivating our annual programming.
Thank you. Give me just a moment. All right. Can everybody?
Looks good.
Looks good? Okay. All right. Okay. So good morning, everyone. So I love that cycle that you just shared. Mark puts everything together in perspective on a single page. And again, the first and the foremost part in that cycle was how to have your programming in place. And as you see, and you'll see that you all know that um, a good programming and effective programming, the choices of topics, diversity in the topics, they all help in enhancing marketing, engagement, interest, and growth of volunteers within an association. So so with that, I would like to show you this particular slide, which is essentially what happens in most of our associations, whether they are professional associations or otherwise, when our education programming meetings are going on. So this is a very, very common scenario where we get um, um, we collect and we are looking for ideas, we are looking for topics. Many a times it is, we are constrained with time, and we end up calling our 5 best friends and making all of them guest speakers in one after the other for the entire year. And then and a lot of times also we find that our social media strategy, where we want engagement, we want people to talk about these programs even after the program has taken place. But many times that doesn't happen either, because it's only the committee members who are pretending to show interest every back and forth. So you have, this individual who's saying that I'm the only one who keeps posting and participating in these chats. And then because a lot of the associations have a financial investment that is involved to become a member, it is something to think about, that what is in it for them? Why are these members paying, even if it is a nominal fee or a large sum of money? Are we providing them the value in terms of our programming? Sometimes we use the term education programs, and depending on the nature of the association. And so this is a very common scenario. And so we should, first of all, collectively, we should not feel embarrassed, because this happens a lot. It happens a lot. I've been on committees where I have volunteered my time, and this is exactly that has been happening. And I'm probably this person here who's not even in the picture. And so it's a very common problem. And I thought, from my background in training design and training development, I thought there is a way to look at it from a completely training design and development point of view. And so that's where my work comes in. And I am from L&D space. I love to find solutions, how people can improve their style of working, improve their performance at workplace. And that is essentially what I do. So some of the things that I do are workplace learning strategy development. I do learning technology consulting, and this particular bullet point has become so much more important now that we are all working in some sort of a blended or a hybrid or completely virtual formats and workplaces. One of my really timely projects that I'm doing are converting contents, essentially slides or videos and whatever content that an association or any organization had. Me and my collaborators and my team members, we convert them into online delivery. It could be a MasterClass, it could be a learning path, and a training program, depending on what the targeted need is. I do virtual facilitation sessions on strategy development, change management, and workplace culture and team development. So from there, let's look at what a programming iceberg is like. An iceberg model is very common. What you see on the top of the surface of the water is just the tip of the iceberg, right? So what we see in a perfect world of where an association has perfect programming in place, what we see are that there is a variety of topics. There are these well-attended events. You see online engagement. You see membership engagement, numbers of membership, increasing. People are satisfied becoming a part of that organization. The organization also has a social media presence, more, very effectively, not just a lonely Twitter every few months. And what people don't really see is all the hard work that goes underneath, and which is you need to have a marketing strategy in place. You need to have sponsorships in place, and SEO been very critical because we are reaching out on using different channels, leadership buy-in, content strategy, and accountability, that as a committee we are keeping each other accountable for all the tasks and the responsibilities that we are taking during these planning meetings. So with that, I am going to move into the next slide, where I've used a concept called as design thinking, which is essentially a human-centered design. It's a tertiary branch of instruction systems design, and we use it from different using from different angles when we design our training as well, because we tend to keep the learner and what the learner is doing in their environment in the center when we are creating a training program for them. So this particular slide holds true, that we must design for the way that people behave and not for how that we would wish them to behave. So we need to first know, what are they feeling? And that is essentially what the human-centered design is. So looking at an example, I'm mentioning it right away, that this is a more complex and a longer process. I'm sharing with you a complete microwavable version of it. So please connect with me if you have any other questions, or if you would like for me to come in and help you with your project. I will be more than happy to do so. So what we do is, for any organization, any association, we would create something called as an empathy map. And this empathy map keeps the human being in the center. So that box in here has a human being, right? We need to know who is in our association, who are these people who are going to learn, and why are they a member of our association. It's a very grueling process, to use a term in that way, because it involves not only surveys, not only interviews, not only one-on-one conversations or calls and having all of those, but all of those things together. You want to collect information about the members so that we can build representative personas. And so here is, for example, a human being that we are looking for. This is a learner. We see that we want to look at, what is this learner thinking? What is this learner feeling? Why is this person in the association? I have consciously put this particular picture because this individual is holding the phone. And so I'm thinking that, oh, this person probably wants a lot of the content to be present, or he's very social media active. And so maybe he wants to get some education and engagement through Twitter or through LinkedIn. And all those pieces of information have to be recorded. What are his challenges? What point in his career, if it's an association for professional development, what point in his career is he in? What can an association offer him? What is motivating him to be in this association? You can change those personas. So you will find that by doing numerous observations and doing numerous data collection, you can hone into several types of personas, and you can group them together. And this is another example where there is a woman, and maybe perhaps she's an educator, and maybe if you are, maybe she has a hobby of being active in community development, and she's a part of your civic league. What can you, as a civic league, provide her? Can she? Why is she there? What is she thinking? What is her motivation to be in there? And what is her challenge to be in there? Another example here could be somebody who's a parent with a child, and again, these examples, these personas become they're hidden because a lot of times we don't notice that people come to museums not to look at art, but a lot of times they want the children to play in the play area. So now you're looking at a membership not just from an adult who is interested in the art and fine arts, but also a person who's looking for a peaceful, quiet place where he or she can just relax while the child plays in the common room. So you see what I'm trying to say? The persona of the learner and how we engage them and how we provide programming changes, and it actually evolves into finding new ways and avenues to tap into if we start looking at them from by putting the learner in the center. Another example, a person who might be from a manufacturing place and a manufacturing background. Why is this person a part of the association? Maybe this person has a hobby of painting, and that's why he is a part of the museum. What is the museum providing him so that he wants to continue this? So these are just some of those examples. And another last example would be, this particular individual. Perhaps she is looking to be in this position because she wants to volunteer and learn about a nonprofit organization. So people come into associations and volunteer their times for lots of reasons, and many times because we are pressed for time or we are not doing that due diligence during the planning stage, we might miss on all this valuable information that is right there. So this is how the empathy maps are created, and the learner persona is created on the basis of that. And the other factors that once we have those things ready, we also want to consider as we are planning some of the other factors, and some of them are scheduling. And those things come out too. You would know each and every persona when you're putting them in the consideration and putting them in the center. You want to know when is this person actually coming into the museum, or coming. What is this person's schedule, and so on. The relevance. Is the education or programming that we are providing, is it relevant to what this person wants, or what our membership wants? So that needs to be refreshed if it is not. Let me give you an example of the global pandemic. Most of the associations, which are professional associations, are seeing a lot of people getting furloughed. So the relevance of those topics that were planned in 2019, they have to be paused or maybe deleted and be refreshed with new topics of, hey, how to support by finding new jobs, or how do you want to make a lateral shift in your career, or maybe start freelance, or go, all those type of topics become more relevant according to what they demand in what is going on around the world. Then comes communication. Communication being online as well as face to face. What is the strategy that an association is putting in place? Whether they are using digital tools, whether they are capturing some sort of capturing data using some marketing plan. All those things have to be planned, and the education piece and the learning engagement piece has to be aligned with that as well. And then again, delivery. Most of us can see that a lot of the associations where we used to have face-to-face meetings, all of them have become Zoom meetings. Let's look at this. We are all sitting in our houses, in our homes, and attending this conference. So that needs to be a consideration too. Where is the learner going to come in? You might have a membership who is probably not that tech savvy. How are you going to engage them if they are a good percentage in your association? So those are some of those pieces of information that will come out as a finding when you do an empathy map. Finally, second to last is the credentialing and incentivization. If you are a profession, it holds more true for professional associations. If you are a professional association and you're providing learning programs, are they counting towards something? Can you provide continuing education credits to it? What is the incentive for a person who is maybe early career or mid career or late career, or somebody who wants to come into this field of work? So what is the incentive that we can provide as an association? And then finally, when we are doing all this planning, what are our success indicators? How would we know that this planning has worked? What is the percentage of engagement we want to see? What is the percentage of attendance we want to see? And so using that and then optimizing according to that piece of information, we need to consider and create our plan. And so I wanted to take a quick minute here and request everybody to unmute themselves and tell me that which factor from the previous slide, which I'll share, do you think is your association requiring most support for? So if Mark could unmute everybody, that would be very appreciated.
Everybody's got that.
Yes.
Sonia, I just want to make sure that we're a little bit cognizant of time here and save time for questions.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. No, and I mean, we can use this particular section for doing that, as well as if people have questions. So then I won't take extra question time.
Perfect.
Yeah. So anybody who's having in your associations that you might be volunteering in, if you, I just wanted to know if you had any specific areas where you see as a problem or a bottleneck area. If not, then we can move on because it's 10:30 or 10:31 already. So here's a programming framework which I created, and I can graciously share with everybody, where you can see how you can make ongoing topics, seasonal topics, monthly topics that you want to use according to maybe relevance throughout the time or cycle within your programming cycle. And using those personas, you can actually create something that everybody can use. And so that, and then this could probably help in having better planning and better planning meetings. So essentially, empathize, define your problem, what your problem is, and refine and repeat. And so have the empathy map. What are the factors that you might be using as you're planning, and then refining what you have and optimizing it. That's the way to go. And that was my last slide. Again, if you're looking for any virtual planning session to be facilitated, or converting your online content, or doing a train the trainer for online presenting, please let me know. I'm listening. Let's connect. And yeah, thank you so much for your attention.
All right, thank you, Sonia. Chock full of stuff, just like all these sessions are going to be, are chock full of stuff. So I hope everybody who's got their water-cooled pens out or typing furiously, capturing these notes. As I said before, or I meant to say before, in a few business days, everyone will receive an email. Thank you for attending, and along with some links to the resources here. So the slides, if we have slides to share, as well as, for example, the spreadsheet Sonia showed for the long-term planning, and everybody's contact information will be on that resources page as well. So what I'd like to do now is turn the stage over to Mr. Bill Dittmar from Executive Fusion. He's going to give us everything he knows. After 30 years of being in the marketing business, he's going to give us everything he knows in 12 minutes. So I'm going to ask Bill to micro-target his discussion about micro-targeting your marketing. Over to you, Bill.
All right. Hello, everybody. As you can tell, I'm joining you from a rainy soccer field up in Fredericksburg, Virginia. Mark put the challenge on me there to share everything I know in 13 minutes. Normally, I can do that in 10 minutes. So I got to figure out 2 or 3 extra minutes of what I might not know that I know. So to kind of play off of Samya's talk, the part that I come in is you've already picked your event and you're trying to start to plan for it. And the next most important thing in my eyes, I'm a little biased, but the next most important thing, of course, is how are you going to market it? And so I'm going to try to, over the next 12 minutes or so, give you a relatively quick template that's going to help you plan and position things for that event and make it more successful. So basically, I'm going to need your help with regards to, you need a white piece of paper, and you need to be able to basically draw on the top. I need 5 quadrants. Think of a spreadsheet. So you're going to have 5 going down the left side and 5 columns. And then you'll also have 5 rows going across the top. Okay. So basically, the key to the success of any well-planned event, right, is making sure people get there. And we got to get them there first, and then it's executing, right? So I'm going to focus on the part of the messaging of getting the people there. But the first thing we need to do is think about the constituents. Who are our constituents that we got to think about? And I'd like to propose that each of those constituents have a different motivation or a different reason for potentially coming. So on the left side of your piece of paper, I would like you to write down the following constituents. So the first one I have on my list would be the members. And then the next one would be either sponsors or vendors, because most of our events don't happen unless we have engaged sponsors or vendors, right? The third one on the list going down, and it's maybe one you haven't thought about, but it's actually your board, right? It's the people who, you know, make the decisions of what's going to happen and when is it going to happen. And then the next one down would be your guests. And I also like to put for guests potential members, right? Because we're always trying to grow. And one way that people check us out is, you know, they come to an event or so. And the last one on there, and especially since we're mostly nonprofits, is actually speakers, right? So a lot of times you're getting speakers or trying to get speakers, and you either don't have a budget for it, or you have a small budget for it. So just like anything else, you have to sell them on coming to and being part of this event. So those are our 5 key constituents that I feel when we're going to put on an event, once we've decided what we're going to do, you need to think about each of those 5, and you need to think individually on how can I convince them to spend their time and potentially their money to come to our event and be engaged in it. So that's our left side of the column. Across the top is what I kind of have found over the years, and Mark said, I have been in marketing for over 30 years. We published a magazine for 20 of those years, and I do a lot of business coaching and training. So the way that I've kind of come up with a system for marketing is just 5 words. Whether I'm building an ad, if I'm building a website, if I'm building a message, I always approach it with these 5 things in mind. So in your top left row, I want you to put the word awareness. Then just to the right of that, I want the word pain. Right next to that, I would like pleasure. The 4th row over, I want credibility. And then the final box, the final row is call to action. So this is where, and putting it up there perfect is what I saw. This is where I'm going to spend most of the rest of our time. So if I'm creating an ad, and an ad has 4 elements to it, and it's basically these 4 elements. Picture a print ad. You're going to have an awareness element. Often that is a graphic. In ads and stuff, we're often using a graphic to create that awareness. And that awareness has to say, hey, this thing is going on, and we'd like you to be thinking about coming to it, right? So awareness is usually done with some type of graphic that catches the target market's attention. And then it's followed very quickly by a pain or pleasure statement. Usually we do this in headlines, and we have headlines and we have subheads. So why pain, why pleasure? Well, from my sales training, basically people buy or make a decision to buy. Almost 85% of it is done from an emotional level. Okay, we all like to think we're super smart and we do all of our buying intellectually. But if that was true, then the spray that they put in the new cars, they wouldn't waste the time spraying the new cars, right? That smell of that new car. We buy emotionally. So this is why pain and pleasure is so important, is basically people make a buying decision either to avoid a pain or experience a pleasure. Let's think about someone buying a yacht or a boat. Okay, they don't realize it, but later on they're going to be probably wanting to avoid the pain of it. But in the beginning, they're mostly buying for the pleasure, right? Because they're thinking about taking out the family. They might love to fish. They love to be out on the water. So when you're selling a boat, you're selling the pleasure side of it, okay? And then maybe you're a boat reseller, right? And that whole ad campaign changes because now you're selling the pain of, wow, you got to dock this boat. You got to clean this boat. You only took it out 3 times this year. So pain and pleasure are very, very critical to be thinking about in terms of your next headline statement or your body text. All right. So hopefully you can see how I'm building this matrix. Basically, for each of those constituents, the pain or pleasure might be different. So from your board member's perspective and trying to get them engaged, it's different from a current member. From a new or prospective member, the pain or pleasure might be different. So a current member might be coming because they have to get some CE credits, right? They got to check a box. Or a potential member might not even be in that need yet, but they're looking at how they can learn more about that field. I just recently connected I do some training of some Navy SEALs, and I just connected them to PMI because they're thinking they might want to go into project management, but they really don't know what it is, right? So they're going to go to an event just to see if this is something they might want to be part of. Whereas someone who's a current member may be going to that event because they need to get a CE credit. So going further down, so pain and pleasure, super, super important. And I want you to be thinking when you're filling this out for your events, think for each of those constituents, what pain or what pleasure or what pains and pleasures would be the motivational statements that would get them to read on. The next category is credibility. So if I'm building a website, typically I have the third rung of the website will have some kind of credibility. It might say, you know, our association's been around for 50 years. We're the go-to association. And I'm going to follow that with some testimonials, right? So credibility is very, very important. Once, if we track this, you get the people's awareness. Now you get them to pay attention to the pain and pleasure statements, the motivators. And then you're going to have some credibility because you still got to convince them to spend their time and their money to come to your event. So credibility is very important. And then the last step of this is call to action. And sometimes we're too soft in the call to action. We want to create urgency. So when you're looking at what the pains or pleasures are, that helps you consider urgency. So going back to my example earlier, the person who has to get the CE credits for coming to the event, maybe we're at the end of the year and these have to be done by December and we're in October already. So that might make your call to action a lot more urgent if you mention that, like don't wait because you only have 2 more opportunities to get these done before January 1. Just making that up, right? But that call to action, the other important part of call to action is it has to be definitive. You have to tell people and show people exactly what you want them to do. Is it call? Is it sign up? Is it send a deposit? Is it pick a track? So basically, that's in as simple as I can. We have a nonprofit marketing template that Mark is going to put up that goes really deep into defining each of the personas and their different mindsets, and there's a lot to it. But I tried to, since we only had a few minutes, I tried to really boil this down to something that would be quick and easy. So let's just basically recap it, and then I'll take any questions. So on our left side, we have our 5 or 6 constituents. And then for each of them, we want to go through and write out in that quadrant what their awareness might be, what would catch their attention, what type of graphic, what type of headline. Then your next statements would be your pains or pleasure statements. Then we got to have our credibility somewhere built into that message. And then, of course, our explicit call to action. So, any questions?
So Bill, all our problems will be solved when we fill out our 5x5 matrix with 25 snippets.
You got
Guaranteed?
well, it's 100% guarantee, you know. So you will see if you open up the nonprofit marketing template, one of the things you will see is the whole process before that is defining what your 3 goals and your 3 objectives for that event are. So then you actually will go in and rank the priority of each of your constituents. So then from there, you're going to create your messaging based on that ranking. So if our number 1 constituent that we're trying to reach is new members, that's going to certainly shape most of your messaging. The other point to this is that you need to be flexible and realize you will point different messaging at different groups. So, you know, if you have to do a single ad, you kind of have to make a judgment call and pick out the key things and how will you reach enough of your, say, 2 or 3 of your constituents. But when it comes to social media, let's say it's a blog post or it's specific email messages, what I'm telling you is you should have a different message crafted to your new member versus your potential member. And if you can segregate it by the way you actually can reach out to them, that would be the ideal way.
Right. So that kind of adds that 3rd dimension, if you will. So it's who you're talking to, what part of the message you're trying to get across, and of course, the channel or the means by which they're going to receive that, because an email message is not a tweet.
Exactly. And I would add in there, back to the priority of who you're trying to reach, you know, you want to make sure the problem is we have difficulty. We don't have unlimited budget, right? We don't have a lot of resources. So it's very, very important that we maximize those resources. And just to create a message that's generic for all, it's kind of vanilla, you're going to lose the people that you're trying to reach. So really thinking about the bottom line, I can summarize it with this, is you got to really think about your target customer, right? Your target market, and you got to create messaging that's going to attract them, and realize you only have seconds, right? You might only have 2 to 5 seconds. So that's why the format I gave you goes knowing that in the first 2 to 5 seconds, you got to catch their attention, the awareness, and usually some kind of graphic that relates to their pain or pleasure is going to get them looking. But now you have to follow with some strong pain or pleasure statements, 2 or 3, that really draw them in, get them to say, yeah, let me learn more. Now they've learned more. They say, yeah, this is for me, or this might be for me. That's where credibility comes in. Because now you're saying, hey, we're the best. You need to come to this. You're going to get this. We have the credibility to deliver what we promised up top. And then finally, while they're hot, while they're ready, you got to grab them. You got to get them to do something. You got to take action. And that's why the call to action. So it's rather simplistic, but I'm telling you, I approach every piece of marketing messaging that I do with these 4 or 5 steps.
So questions? Everybody's unmuted, so you can just shout out if you got a question here, or unmute yourself and then shout out. Yeah, Bill Pearsall.
Yeah, Bill. So yeah, I guess it's just a comment, but it kind of occurred to me using this is helps you prevent mixed messages. If you write things out, and then if you see something, mixed message, it would be helpful by doing this. If you don't have a system, again, you could be muddling your message. So anyway, just a comment, but it was helpful to see this matrix.
So Bill, to me, it's a great comment, and here's the reason. A lot of times, if you look at the newspaper, you look at a magazine, anytime you see a poorly crafted ad, it's usually because they tried to accomplish too much in that one space. So you have to really pick one or two objectives and try to get that across, because otherwise the confused mind cannot buy. I love that phrase. And if we try to put too much in that place, we try to solve all 5 of those constituents in one place, it's gonna probably not be effective. So I love your comment, because I think that's what I'm trying to get you to think about is, all right, who's the most important people? What channel are we reaching them on? And then if we can segregate them, how do we make sure we segregate that message just for them? And don't confuse them. The confused mind cannot buy.
Good. Sounds good. Thanks.
Thank you.
So we got time for maybe like one more question for Bill. If not, we'll move along here. We're going to take like about a 2-minute break. So we'll come back for that. But there's just one more thing, Bill, that I wanted to add. I was thinking about this. You gave us a 2-dimensional chart, and then we mentioned, well, there's actually a 3rd dimension when you think about the channels, but there's actually a 4th dimension of time, because there's a book called Influencers that speaks to how do you get people to take a particular action or to change their actions. And one of the biggest takeaways is you never know exactly what message is going to make the difference, or what combination of messages are going to do it. But there's something that seems to say, if you tell somebody something 4 ways over 4 different channels, they'll probably take the action you want if they're predisposed to do so. So it's actually adds a 4th dimension. So you're thinking about all this messaging and all these channels. Also, if you repeat that message, you actually have to do some change up to it. So that adds just a wee bit of complexity to it. But it all really starts with that matrix that you described, addressing those 5 areas and knowing your audience. It's kind of what Somia was talking about, knowing your audience as a leader for that. So like I said, we're going to, actually, Keith, you're back. So we're not going to take that quick break.
And Mark, I would really encourage people to look at that full thing that we'll put in that nonprofit marketing template, because
yes,
that really will go into, hopefully what we did or what I did here will just get you curious enough and give you the basic template. But when you look into there's a lot more parts to this process. So we had actually done a 2-hour whole session on this before. So thank you. Yep. So thank you, everybody. Make it a great day. I am going back to my soccer fields, even though it's raining.
All right, Bill. Thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks.
Don't
Bye-bye.
slip. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. So with that, what I'd like to do is we're going to advance upon our cycle here. And I'd like to bring to the stage, as it were, Keith Reynolds. Keith Reynolds is the boss of Synapse, as you can notice by his hat and over his left shoulder. Synapse is Synapse Hub is a business networking group of which I'm a member. And I asked Keith to talk to us specifically about one aspect of membership engagement. Then I'm just going to turn it over to him and let him focus on that. So Keith, if you're ready, the floor will be yours.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I will say I do have a 22-month-old upstairs in the house. So just forgive me if you do hear him make lots of noise at some point. I've got some family there to try to keep him muzzled for the most part. They'll take him outside if necessary, but hopefully he will not be too much of a distraction for us. I'm going to go ahead and share a screen here. Bring this up for everybody.
Got it.
All right. Hopefully everybody can see this. Cool. All right. Well, thank you guys. Mark, thank you for this opportunity. Yeah, so Mark obviously explained that Synapse is kind of this unique networking organization. And ultimately, we're all about creating connections and collaboration between the nonprofit community and the small business community. So, our members are really a diverse mix of people and professionals that are just passionate and purpose-driven and whatever it is that they are all about, personally and professionally. And today, I want to kind of talk about this specific topic. It's kind of funny: tools, chickens, and eggs. What the cluck? And this is really just helping people to understand, really just from a networking perspective, but in so many ways, honestly, just in life in general, kind of how all the people that we consider, friends, resources, people in our networks, personally and professionally, how they can be utilized to add value into our lives and to the lives of those in our circles, maybe in our networks or in our membership organizations. So, this is certainly not a concept that's specific to Synapse, but I'll kind of share some tips and tricks and things to help everybody kind of understand how this can be implemented with their membership organization and in their daily lives. So I'm actually going to kind of start this backwards. So what I'd like to do is go and talk about the eggs first. All right, so I'm going to talk about the eggs first. And when it comes to eggs, what's kind of the definition of eggs as it pertains to networking? Really, an egg is kind of a client, a deal, a sale. So they're your customers. They could be referrals, but new business. So, anybody who's got a sales job, anybody who's looking to get new business, they're out there looking for eggs, hoping to get as many eggs as they can, to make as much money as they can, to build their business and to find success. So that's kind of the typical thought process. A lot of people are out there networking, are hoping to find some eggs. They hope they go to a meeting, they meet somebody that needs their services, and they are able to get that new business, and that turns into an egg for them. So kind of examples, if you think about it, a banker getting a new bank client, somebody that walks in and opens a new bank relationship, somebody who you meet at the bar and they need life insurance and you're able to provide that particular thing for them. A new mortgage customer or a new social media client. So really an egg is just, again, kind of a client or a transaction, a new customer for you. So really when it comes to kind of your membership organization or you yourself, it's trying to understand kind of what those eggs look like for people, what those ideal eggs are, and favorite types of eggs, as we would say. And that really just comes down to specifically what you do and the types of clients you really like to work with. So there's a lot of factors in that. It's really trying to think of, what is your ideal client? Because lots of people, you might be able to do business with lots of different people. An insurance person can do business with pretty much anybody, but we all have our preferences. Personalities can matter sometimes. So it's really trying to identify those ideal clients when you think about your preferred eggs, your favorite types of eggs. And those things can, range from the personality I mentioned, kind of experience that somebody might have in their business or whatever they do. Maybe location might matter, territory where somebody lives, works, whatever it may be. But really thinking that through is important. And when you think about your membership organization, trying to understand what your members do and the types of eggs that might be most valuable for them can be really, really helpful to be aware of those things so that you can think about how to produce eggs for some of those folks that are volunteering, that are part of your membership organization, because it adds value whenever you can help them to find more eggs. So when you think about kind of taking care of those eggs, it's really important just to remember that every client that you work with, every new person that you might bring in to your client base has the potential to be a repeat client. And then they could, do business with you time and time again, or better yet, they actually could turn into one of your favorite chickens. And I'll talk about that in just a second, because if an egg ends up being taken care of, then ultimately they can hatch and they can turn into a chicken, which can be exponentially more valuable for someone. So when it comes to chickens specifically, yeah, chickens lay a lot of eggs. And when you're out there as a professional, a chicken ultimately is somebody who is a center of influence, or an individual that may, because of what they do professionally, be in front of your eggs, your ideal clients, consistently, regularly, almost all the time. So chickens are extremely valuable to anyone who is in business and looking for referrals and looking to obviously add clients to their client base. So trying to really understand what your chickens are, depending on what you do, and trying to understand what your members of your membership organization, what their chickens look like, can be really, really helpful in actually connecting people, making introductions, and helping individuals be in touch with and nurture relationships with those potential chickens. So again, kind of examples of chickens. Think about it. Realtors can be really good chickens for mortgage officers, right? Michelle, you're in here. So I'm assuming as a mortgage officer, you probably get most of your referrals from real estate agents. They're out there working with their clients and they want to recommend a mortgage officer. So if you're nurturing those relationships with lots of good realtors out there, then you're increasing your chances of receiving lots of eggs from those real estate agents so they can become your chickens. Other examples, financial advisor can be a really good chicken for, say, a banker. You can really kind of dig into this and think about all the different examples, but it's important to really think about from your perspective, whatever you do professionally, who are those individuals, those types of professionals that are in the position to recommend to you or recommend you to those ideal clients consistently, so they can really kind of turn up a referral stream of eggs for that individual. So again, kind of thinking about a membership organization, understanding what they do, what they're good at, and who they serve well and who their ideal clients are. You can really think about how introducing some of those members to their potential chickens can be extremely valuable for them. So let's see, as far as, when you find those chickens, think about it. If you find a chicken that's referring you lots of eggs and sending your ideal clients consistently, it's not always easy to, I would say networking is not a tit for tat game. So it's not always easy to be able to say, hey, you sent me a referral, so now I'm going to send you a referral back. So sometimes you've got to make sure you really are focused on taking care of your chickens, because if they know that you make them look good when they send you their eggs and you really wow that client and wow that egg, then there's a good chance that chicken's going to continue to produce for you. So things like making sure they feel appreciated, making sure that you're thanking them appropriately, making sure that you're always doing everything you can to make sure that they don't stop referring you those eggs and sending you those opportunities, can really, really good for business. So it's just important that you acknowledge that and realize it's not always about, hey, you sent me a referral, I'm gonna send you one back. It's just, how do you take care of those chickens to ensure that they see you as a valuable resource that they can constantly share with their clients, and ultimately allow you to be kind of fed those eggs on a consistent basis. Tools are resources. All right. So personally, professionally, tools are resources. And no matter what you do, you're going to have certain tools, certain types of professionals that you probably need to call in to serve your clients to the best of your ability. My background was in banking. And as a banker, I needed lots of tools because a lot of my clients needed things outside of my expertise, outside of what the bank was able to provide them when they came in to see us about any of the services we would offer. So it's really important to think about how you can be the best possible service provider to your client base by having as many tools in your tool belt as you possibly can, and constantly thinking about what those tools might look like and what are kind of the ideal tools for you based on what you do. So again, examples of tools, naturally a real estate agent, when they're helping somebody with their house, maybe they're helping somebody sell a house, think about a stager. I mean, a real estate agent pulling in a stager to help that client sell that house, increase the value, extremely helpful. Think about, contractors, naturally, a real estate agent having lots of trustworthy, reliable, ethical contractors that they can share and recommend to their clients to help them sell their house. Max value can be extremely important and very, very helpful. So thinking about that is a really important thing for all of us, trying to understand whatever we do professionally, what are some of those professions that could be valuable tools for us, so that we always know we've got a couple folks that we can call on to help serve our clients well when they have needs outside of our expertise. So when it comes to kind of the tool belt, as I like to say, we all know that sometimes tools over time get a little dull. Maybe they become a little less reliable. So we've always got to be looking for new tools. We've always got to make sure that we've got a variety of tools at our disposal that we can access whenever we need them, and have them at top of mind. But when we realize that one of those resources maybe lets us down, maybe doesn't make us look good, doesn't serve a client well when we give them that opportunity, when we share that opportunity with them, then sometimes we need to replace those tools. Sometimes we need to realize that's not a tool we want to share any longer, because they aren't going to help my reputation. They aren't going to make me look good, or they're not going to solve the problem for the client that I'm trying to help. So we're always out there searching for new tools. And when you find someone that you have proven themselves to be a reliable professional, and you know that they're going to take good care of your client when you recommend them, then you want to make sure that you're holding on to them, that you're nurturing them, and that you're keeping them at top of mind, so that you can always be as resourceful for the people in your life as you possibly can. So again, going back to kind of just the overall value to, say, a membership organization, when it comes to the kind of this concept, you know, a lot of folks that are in our membership organizations, as Mark said, are volunteers, are giving of their expertise, their time. They're not getting paid for it. And how in the world can you make sure they see value in that experience? Well, one of the main things is that, you know, you can say thank you, obviously, and being, you know, showing gratitude and appreciation is key, but that's not monetary, right? There's no monetary value in that. Recognition, maybe giving somebody an award, recognition. Well, that can be great too. Maybe that's a small cost, but again, it doesn't result in any money exchange. It doesn't help your member to maybe get paid, get money. But that's where this comes in, because there's so much value. If you know your members well, and you know what they do, and you know what their chickens look like, what their tools look like, what their eggs might look like, then you can be a thoughtful connector, and you can help to connect your members in your organization to other people that you know in your life that could become one of those three things for them. And that adds value, because that can actually turn into money. And when you're able to help your members by simply making thoughtful connections that result in new business for them or valuable resources for them, then that can be very, very helpful to keeping those folks engaged and really appreciative of being part of that organization that you run. So that's kind of the gist of it. I'm happy to answer any questions if I haven't run out of time, but pretty simple stuff, but it's kind of funny to think about. But I think this can be helpful in our personal lives and our professional lives, because you never know when you're going to need a particular professional, personally or professionally. So the more you're proactive about going and kind of resourcing all these tools, chickens and eggs for yourself, and understanding what those look like in your world can be really, really helpful for you in your life all the time. So I'll pause. Mark, thanks.
Yeah, so that's great, Keith. I mean, yeah, fantastic set of tips that I think not only for the leaders of membership associations, who are probably got to be your key networkers in the group, but also taking these ideas and sharing with the membership. You know, one of the big challenges, of course, with all membership associations is retention of members and bringing in new members. I said one of them, those are two things, but they're both related to sustainability of membership associations is a healthy membership base. We're thinking back to some of the things that Bill Dittmar talked about when he was talking about credibility. The greatest credibility for saying you should join this organization is the fact that I'm a member of it. I'm putting my own credibility on the line. So thinking about this chicken and eggs and tools approach can better enable your members to reach out and be networking advocates on behalf of the organization, as well as, of course, like as Keith was emphasizing, bringing value to the individual members members, to their fellow members, just in terms of, stuff outside of the organization. So I just want to, you kind of just add a little salt and pepper on that, if I might. Yeah, we've got a couple minutes here. If there's questions from the audience, everybody is unmuted, so you can just sing out, or you can wave at me, or do whatever you wish.
Keith, I have a question for you.
Yes, ma'am.
In 30 seconds, tell us what Synapse is.
So yes, Synapse is a unique business or community kind of networking organization. And networking is one of those words I almost try to avoid because it's got a certain stigma to it. But our whole thing is to really be a networking organization that creates connections and collaboration between the nonprofit community and the small business community. So it's really about raising awareness for these great nonprofits all over the community and tapping into the passion and purpose of entrepreneurs and professionals that want to sell, need to network, but they also want to help raise awareness for and support causes that they care about in the community. So we build these hubs all over the place, and their hubs are wrapped around nonprofits, and they are led by professionals in the community that, like I said, need to network, want to network, but more importantly, have a passion for a cause and want to help support that nonprofit through awareness and through our process of holding these meetings to allow those nonprofits to have a captive audience consistently. Thank you.
Got time here for another question? If there are indeed, there is another question, or if you're just reeling. All right, folks. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a 2-minute break. So if it's been a coffee morning, you can put those. I said, excuse me. Take a 3-minute break, so you can either refill or do whatever else you have to do with that coffee. I'll put a little timer up on the screen, so we'll reassemble then and come back with Chandran and talk about volunteer leadership pipeline, stuff like that. So thanks again, Keith. Rowan, your son Rowan was delightfully quiet, so thank him on our behalf as well. All right, we'll see everybody back here in about 3 minutes. Thanks. All righty. Wasn't that fun? No, I took advantage of the break there. I know my dogs were happy to see me for a brief thing. All right, so we're back. We're going to keep moving along our segments here, our business cycle, as it were. So as I told you before, the next thing I think that's just, all these segments are equally important, but they follow a logical flow. So we're going to flow to the next step, which is talking about building your volunteer leader pipeline. So I'm going to turn it over to Chandran Thornburg, who is the Director of Volunteers and so many other jobs at the Virginia Living Museum. So she's got to do this stuff for a living. The rest of us don't. So let's listen to her. Chandran.
Well, thank you. So yes, I mean, currently I do wear a lot of hats, but most of my experience has been managing volunteers, and obviously those in professional associations are also volunteers. My background includes having been in, a member in professional associations, then little by little stepping into roles such as secretary, vice president, and then president. So I've kind of gone through the cycle, and today I'm going to be sharing some of my experiences and just a practical approach, things that maybe worked out great, maybe some pitfalls and challenges and things like that. So I'm going to start with the challenges and help you kind of work through some things. My approach is very practical And I'll have some very concrete things, hopefully, that you can take away with you as you develop leaders in your organizations. So to start with, just pitfalls and challenges. My first advice is just not to make an assumption that people are not interested. Maybe there's a member or someone who, visited once or twice, maybe you haven't really seen them. Maybe they're a member who hasn't come very often. Perhaps, maybe they just might need a role, maybe to reach out to them and ask them to do something. Maybe they just need that opportunity. You don't want to be bashful. Obviously, I always say I'm an equal opportunity asker at my job, and I ask people to do things for free every day, pretty much. So done that a lot. But I mean, ask them, don't overwhelm with, oh, well, this role includes these 5 things. Everybody has a full plate. Perhaps maybe what they start with is a smaller role. It is okay for them to say no. I think that a lot of times when you call and ask someone to fill a role or do a task or do something for you, a lot of times people, I can just tell, whether it's on the phone or in person, I can tell they're kind of, oh gosh, what's going to happen if I say no? Just create a safe space for them to say no. It's okay. Maybe that's not the right role. Maybe it's not the right time. But it's okay. I see a wave of relief and I'm like, okay, you know what? So, there'll be some other time that does work out. No worries. We'll catch you later. Not a big deal. And they seem to be very relieved about that. I mentioned maybe start with a smaller role. Ask someone to join a committee or co-chair or kind of be second in command for newsletter committee or hospitality committee, whatever it might be, whatever roles need to be filled. One thing to avoid, I think sometimes it's easy to just say, oh, we just need somebody to do this because, we're coming to the deadline and, we've just got to get this done. You don't want to sell the role to the wrong person. Consider, maybe someone who is very reserved would be better for doing something individually and not necessarily going out and soliciting donations for your upcoming fundraiser, for example, something like that. So, you'd probably want someone who's very outgoing, maybe someone who has experience in those kinds of things, to do something along those lines. Some of kind of what I am talking about really ties in with some of the other presenters and some of the points that they made. But you want to just make sure that you do have an agenda, that your members or your guests' time is well spent. I have been parts of organizations in years past where I would go to the meeting because, I am, an up and coming professional years ago and wanted to network and talk with other people. But I would go to a meeting and no kidding, it was, okay, call the meeting to order. Now what we're going to do is, each person in attendance is just going to tell what's going on at their organization. While that may be good for networking, there really wasn't a program or really wasn't anything that I felt like was relevant to me. And coming away from it saying, was that really the best use of my time? I mean, people are really, really busy nowadays. So just want to make sure that it is worthwhile. So if you have less members, then obviously that's going to mean you have less potential leaders to grow in your organization. So listen if they make suggestions or they have an idea that makes them have more buy-in to your organization. You just want to make them feel welcomed and listen to their feedback and suggestions. And if they suggest, hey, we need to have a newsletter, maybe that's the person that could head that up for you. They have a lot of buy-in for that. So just think about those kinds of things. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about the building, also known as do these things. So very practical. Obviously, you want to make your guests, new members, and your members, everyone to feel welcome each time that they come to your meeting. You want to foster a sense of belonging. You know, nobody wants to come to a meeting and feel as if no one is talking to them, or they're just not really fitting in, or whatever the case may be. One of the things that we have done in a professional association that I was president for, it was a number of years ago. I learned this at another workshop, and I'm just sorry that I don't remember where I learned it, so I can't give credit, but it's not my idea. But one thing that worked very, very well to begin to get your members, to get them to buy in. See, that's the first step in building your leaders. But designate greeters. Say 2 to 3 people to make connections with people. Seek out new faces in the organization, approach them, walk over, introduce yourself, find out a little bit about them. Oh, have you met Sally? Let's go, let me introduce you to Sally. Introduce these people to 2 or 3 other people each and every single time. That really helps them to get integrated into your organization, which is your first step of getting them into things. Your smaller role can then, of course, lead into other roles. And, Mark has like a life cycle of volunteerism. So they start with something small, and then they can develop and lead into other roles. So just a hint for you, your greeters do not have to be your officers. So you can start right from the get-go, just ask members, hey, do you mind, being the greeter and making sure that you're introducing people? That is the very, very first step. So that's kind of your trial volunteer. So they do, like a small task or something in the very, very beginning. Later on, they can aspire to maybe be the chair of the hospitality committee or whatever the case may be. I'm a big fan of icebreakers. My background is in psychology, and I just think that getting a good team spirit going, fostering that sense of belonging that I was talking about, icebreakers are really, really good to get people interacting with one another and making them feel a part of what you're doing. So I have just 4 very, very simple, very easy, low cost things that you can do. Again, I'm a very practical and concrete person, so I'll just share these things with you. Most everybody has either coins in their pocket or in their purse. So just, you can tell everyone, pull out a coin. Any coin, doesn't matter if it's a quarter, a penny, whatever the case may be. They have a number on it. Then what you can do is just go around the room and have people to say, oh, well, the year on my coin is, 1975 or whatever it is, 1980. Then a memory perhaps from that particular year. If it is historical, if you've got really, really young people and it's from like 1960 or something like that, then you can make it historical. What do they remember from history that impacts them in some way? So very, very simple. That doesn't cost you a thing because they, put the coin back in their pocket when they're done. So this next one is just, you may have seen this, a beach ball. Now, obviously, during COVID, this is not going to work, but once COVID is done, then this could be a really, really fun icebreaker for you. Write questions on a beach ball just with a Sharpie. And so you throw the ball to different people. So wherever their left thumb lands, they answer that question. And you can just have all different kinds of questions, whether it's, a personal question. Again, it's an icebreaker. You just want people to get interacting, learning something fun about one another. So again, non-COVID, but it's a fun one to do. All right, M&Ms, the way to make this COVID friendly is, it's about to be Halloween, but you can buy the really tiny packs of the individually wrapped M&Ms. And so what you do is just make up questions. Yellow M&M means, it could be anything, could be your favorite food. Red M&M means what kind of car you drive, whatever it is. You can make up your own questions, but you decide, how much time do you have? Can they choose 5 M&Ms of any color? and then you tell them what the key is, and then they go around the room, and then they, if yellow is your pets or how many children you have or whatever, they talk about those kinds of points based on the color. Another one that I have done recently at my work is like 20 questions. So basically you break into 2 teams, and there is a way to do this in the COVID era, which is 2 rows of chairs facing one another, socially distanced, of course, but team A has one set of questions, team B has a different set of questions. So team A is going to ask the person across from them the list of questions first. Team B is going to rotate. Team A stays stationary, and once everyone has had a turn to talk to everyone, then you flip it, and then team B are the ones that ask their questions. So, 10 questions for team A, 10 questions for team B. You can have some that are the same. And, we had things like crunchy or smooth peanut butter. Name 2 things on your bucket list. What is your work pet peeve? Could be anything. You can make up your own questions, and that doesn't really cost anything except for a few sheets of paper to fill out, or to have for the participants. So another tip that I have found is you just want to make sure that you continue to communicate between association meetings, particularly with committee chairs, people that you are growing and developing into your leaders, people that you want to ask to fill roles and move through the volunteer life cycle into higher positions, but also your membership. Now, obviously, people get tons and tons of emails. You don't want to overdo it, but just maintain good communication with them. One of the most practical things that I have found in my many, many years of managing volunteers is the absolute #1 best way to get someone to fill a role or do a task or do something for you is just outright ask them. In person, face-to-face is honestly, my experience, the most effective way to get them to say yes. But again, you can allow them to say no, and that's okay. But that's the most effective, is asking them in person. Picking up the phone and calling them typically is next, as then the last would be via an email. A broadcast email blast is probably the least effective, but it can still sometimes be effective, and you can use all of those methods. But again, I mentioned don't be bashful, certainly ask. And as I said earlier, I'm an equal opportunity asker, because that's kind of what I do for a living. So ask for help. Whenever you're asking, say, gosh, we really need help putting together a hospitality committee. Would you be willing to help with that? Or we need help with registration for our fundraiser, or soliciting donations, whatever it is, ask for help, specifically what it is that you need. And, just something small. This could be your trial volunteer. And then after they do that for a while, maybe they step up the next year and head up registration or whatever the case may be. And then the year after that, or another cycle through, then they become an officer, and just kind of moving through that. Delegate your established volunteers, or maybe your committee chairs, as you move them through the volunteer life cycle. Delegate to those people, hey, I would really, really like for you to be in charge of, I'm just using hospitality committee. It could be anything, but they are the people that have already proven themselves. Those people have proven themselves. Delegate to them and say, you know what, I noticed that you're really, really good at ABC, whatever it is. Would you be willing to help us? Don't forget that they can start with a smaller role, as I mentioned. Again, going back to the greeters, those are the people that you can develop and ask to do a little bit more. It's a good way to try things out, so it helps move through the cycle. Consider and think strategically. What do you need in the hospitality committee? Website design for your organization, whatever it is. What qualities do you need in a person who's going to lead your fundraiser? And then there's subcommittees in there. So think about that. Think about, sometimes you're just wanting to get a warm body in there, don't fall into that, as I said. But think about who already has buy-in, who has already proven themselves. Again, you go back to whether it's a committee chair or something like that. People that come a lot, maybe they haven't really been involved, but they, come to your meetings and they have a presence there, then you could kind of begin to move them in and get them involved. What skills are needed, like I will be the first one to tell you, you don't want me to be the treasurer of any organization. But, what do you need? Do you need someone who has, the background with finances and so forth? That person could be your treasurer, or someone who has a marketing background could really run, your social media or something like that. So ask strategically for your members. You could do a survey and find out, what is their background? What are they good at? What do they do? Then your leadership, your current leadership can kind of consider, hey, you know what? We really need to ask, Joe over here because he has a background in finance. We need a treasurer coming up next year. So get to know him. So do you need a detail person? Do you need someone who is much more of a bigger picture person to do a particular role? Provide support and just be responsive to the people that you are working with, to provide support to them and, respond and kind of get to know them, because that is that sense of belonging, then that's going to pull them into you and motivate them to do more for your organization. One of the things that another organization that I have been a member of went to just a workshop one time, and they had a theme. It's an acronym, RED, recruit every day. Now, maybe you don't need to recruit every single day for your professional association, for members or for leaders or whatever, but think about it in that framework of always be on the lookout for the people that seem motivated, people that have buy-in, people that know your organization well, that have a good understanding of what it is that you do and maybe have something to offer. So recruit every day. Enthusiasm breeds enthusiasm. So if you're passionate and it's very obvious that you're passionate about what you do, that is going to bring people to you. Again, having more members, then that leads to more potential leaders of your organization. Consider, this is just, a touch on, some of the marketing, the social media posts or whatever. But you may or may not have a Facebook page. Most people do that, and they have Instagram and all of those other social media platforms. I'm not super tech savvy, but utilize those. But I would just encourage you not to forget about a printed newspaper. I know that a number of years ago, just trying to build our organization, after we had officer elections, we did a press release that appeared in the newspaper to say, these are our new elected officers for our organization, and here are the topics for the next upcoming meetings. How do you contact us? Please come join us, kind of thing. So that is going to draw other professionals, like-minded professionals to you. So just don't forget that that is also an avenue. You can put your, goals and like I said, your meeting topics and things like that publicly. It's a good thing to do. I will leave you with this thought, and we'll talk a little bit about your pipeline. Is it as short as you think it is? Consider whatever your cause is, are there college or high school organizations that have the same topic or the same charity? I know that Greek organizations and other clubs and organizations at colleges generally have a charity that they support. So if your organization has, homelessness as a charity or, a cause that they work towards, then seek out colleges or high schools, or maybe even going into middle schools. Are there associations or not? Are there partnerships that you could form and just approach? Hey, why don't you come, visit our meeting? Let's talk a little bit about what we do. How could we partner together? Those people can be your future leaders. I'll just take Kiwanis as an example. And I'm very impressed by the fact that obviously we know that Kiwanis is the adults, but if you think about it or learn a little bit about them, Circle K International is the collegiate affiliation of Kiwanis. Going back to high school, then the high school key clubs are the high school affiliate that go into that. So, typically you would go into, Key Club and then Circle K International and then become a full Kiwanian, in your adult years. But they have even things, middle school and even younger, they have programs and, they abide by the golden rule. So that's, obviously a good thing to be a part of. But just consider that as you consider, how do you grow your pipeline in recruiting? You can tap into that and make those partnerships to grow your organization and grow your leaders. So that is kind of what I have to share. And does anyone have questions? Anything, Mark? Anything else?
Chandra, that's not bad for 15 minutes on managing volunteer life cycle. As you said, there's so much more to unpack, but I think you offered a ton of real actionable nuggets that any organization can put to use. To think about long-term engagement of volunteers, which are just so vital to the serenity, if you will, of membership associations. So we've got time for maybe like one question here before we can move on to Li Wei. So first hands up or first yell out wins. And if not, you apparently were the best teacher so far. All right, so we're going to move along. Thanks again, Shannon. Great stuff. So Li Wei is going to bring us home, talk to us a little bit about strategy. And obviously, it's a huge topic. So we're going to see just a little micro slice here today. After he's done, I'll wrap us up. It'll be just a couple minutes, so I'll ask you to hang on for that. Just want to discuss a little bit about PDCHR's resources, and then I'll ask you to do a really quick 3 or 4 question survey. So that's our plan for the rest of the day, and that should take us right up to noon. So with that, Li Wei, sir, all yours.
Hi, everyone. This is Li Wei Chen. I'm assistant professor from Old Dominion University. I believe I'm the last one between you and the lunch, so I will try to keep it short and precise. So, and because we have 4 great sessions before us, so so this time maybe we can try a little bit interactive. So if you want to ask questions or interact, just feel free to unmute yourself, and then let me bring my screen up for now, and then we can start. Oops, we share a different one. All right, it should be, is that still, yeah, okay, this is right one. All right, so the previous 4 sessions, we already talked about how to engage your volunteer, maintain, how to find your marketing, optimize your marketing plans, and then how to find your audience, target customers, and who should be your eggs and chicken, right? This is all very important, and that's all we care in our daily operations. But here I would like to pull the perspective a little bit back, take a higher, at a higher level, at the organizational level, and see how are we going to approach how to make our organization better, and that's what we call the strategic alignment. Before we do it, like I believe most of you, if not all, have been into join some strategic planning sessions. How many of you feel that that's useful, or what's your perspectives on that? Well, yeah, that seems, yeah, Mark.
Pretty good. They can be pretty rough.
Yeah, well, I think that's kind of a consensus from a lot of managers, or even not just in the for-profit, but also for nonprofit the managers in nonprofit organization also feel that, yeah, you just don't find the strategic planning that's kind of useful. It's just like too high levels, and then there are a lot of complaints. So it's usually in those kind of meetings, like strategic meetings, there are a lot of problems we see. So first of all, it's that the majority of the focus is on the operational issues. Do we meet our KPIs? Why do we have? Why our revenue drops? Why we lose volunteers? Why are all those operational issues, right? And so it's not very different from all those routine meetings. And then what's the point to bring people in to have another called a strategic planning meeting, right? But it's the focus still on the operational issues. And most important, some of them already mentioned that if the board is not really interested in this topic, right? So the board may already think that, oh, this is what we do, and then we just keep doing it. And then why do we need to even have this kind of thinking or meeting, right? So if lack the board support, then the meeting will not be successful. The other is that common mistakes in this kind of setup is that usually people mistake growth as a strategy, right? So what do you think about? How do we grow? How do we grow our numbers? How do we grow our membership members? How do we grow our revenues? How do we grow? Yeah, all different kind of growth. Of course, growth is important, but growth is never the strategy by itself. It is that how strategy will mean something more deep. How do we achieve these kind of goals? Then that should be the purpose. And then finally, it's that oftentimes it's just, it's a human nature. It's that the kind of self-preservation, that we don't dare to ask big questions. Questions like that. Why do we even engage in this activity? Or why do we even offer these services? Does that make sense? Does that add value to our organization? But because either our positions or some politics or various reasons, we don't dare to ask these big questions. So all these factors that kind of make the strategic meetings ineffective, right? So although ideally strategic planning should be very simple, right? It basically is a process that know where you are right now, and you also know where you want to be, and is there any gap in between? If there is a gap, then how do we resolve the gap or fill out the gap, right? So you could be using different scope, how to build your competitive advantage, what kind of operational logics you want to do, and how to achieve your long-term goal. This is in the ideal situation. Oftentimes, there are a lot of issues that we don't even know where we are right now. Is our position make sense? Does our position make sense? Or how do we compete? Common things that we get lost in the all kind of activities or new ideas in our current situation, and we kind of get lost. That's one problem that we need to deal with. And the other problem is that probably we don't know where we want to be. Right? It's a long-term goal, right? So maybe we have our organizations have defined the value we want to deliver. Do we really get there, or is that value still, do we need to tweak it, or is that still consistent with the current situation? Should we still pursue the same goal or not? So that's, do we know our long-term goal clearly? Right? So a lot of time we need to take a step back to think about all these factors and see if our activities and our long-term goals are aligned and how to approach them. And that's called strategies. Strategy could be, could be defined very broadly, or oftentimes you may ask, what is strategy? We talk about strategy all the time, but what is strategy, right? Anybody want to, share their own opinion on what is strategy? Or, sometimes strategies, usually from my experience with my students, or sometimes the participants, is that the strategy is something related to method, how to achieve a goal, and that's the way you take, or another different type of definition. But for me, I want to keep it simple, because if you have a very complex definition or ideas, then you often cannot go very far, because that's just too complicated. For me, strategy is know what to do, and also importantly, what not to do. This is how you should think about strategies. Oftentimes, a lot of time we still think in our daily life, we often focus on, our competitors do something like this, then we should follow. This is the best practice we should do in the industry, then we should do that. This is a lot of things we want to do, but importantly, you also need to know what not to do. And this all get back to, how do you view your organization? What's the role of your organization on the not just the market, but on the competitive landscape? What's the value you provide from your organization to your target audience? We talked about previous. I think they all talk about target audience. We all talk about target audience. So it all get back to, how do you define the organization? So it is actually simple. Organization exists by serving some needs in the society, no matter it's for profit organizations or non-profit organization. It all basically, that's the purpose of how the organization exists, right? So you can think about it. You can define the organization by who is being satisfied. That's your target audience, right? Target customers, and what is being satisfied. What kind of service, what kind of needs you try to satisfy them, and what's the approach you keep them satisfied? How are those needs are satisfied? And those could be your distinctive competitive advantages as well. And of course, for the and altogether, this should be your organization definition, or could be your strategic position on the market. And of course, in the nonprofit organization is actually very tricky. So you may think about all these strategic kind of things is more for profit, but it's actually applicable to nonprofit. But nonprofit just need to add some tweaks, right? Like, who is your target customers, right? And in the for-profit business, that's kind of straightforward. That's you sell products, and then the general public that's your customers. But for nonprofit organization, we need to deal with actually two groups. One is the donor, right? We need to keep the donors happy. We need to keep our founders happy. But on the other hand, we also deliver services to, no matter it's general customers, or depending on the service you do, or just like YMCA, they deal with that's young adults, or different types customer groups you are dealing with, right? So it actually have two layers of customers you try to satisfy, and how do you approach them, and how do you keep them satisfied, how do you keep them aligned? That's a challenge for the manager, and to think about how to approach them. But essentially, you need to figure out what do they need, and what they really want, and how to keep them satisfied. And your activities and the events, or all the activity, should address those fundamental needs. And that's what we talk about, the strategic alignment. And just back to and if you want to be a competitive on the in this landscape, just like Michael Porter once says that the competitive strategies is all about being different. It means you need deliberately choosing a different set of activities to deliver a unique mix of value. So sometimes, yeah, we see that, oh, there are some new activities best practice we should take, right? Every time you see that, you probably need to ask yourself, well, right, we follow the leaders or follow those best practice, but does that help us deliver the value differently? If there are so many organizations deliver similar activities, deliver similar values, why do other people choose us? Why do other people join us, right? So you need to think about how it's not like all those activities available or approaches or methods on the market. Yeah, they are best practice, but does that make sense to your organization? That's always time to think about it. So usually if you look at those, if you search websites or something about strategies, oftentimes they bring up the Southwest Airlines. That's kind of classic examples, but I personally like IKEA, use IKEA as examples. So I believe most of you have been to IKEA, or if not, then we have finally have one in Virginia, in the Hampton Roads last year, right? So IKEA is they very different from the traditional furniture retailers. They do a lot of different activities, right? So their product is kind of low price, very cheap. Of course, quality sucks, and they have usual modular design, and they have they have very cool showrooms in their store, and the store size is huge. And they have all the parts, because their furniture design is using the do it by yourself, right? You need to assemble all the furniture by yourself, right? So they have all the parts at the end of their stores. So very different from the typical furniture retailer. The typical furniture retailer, on the other hand, is the price much higher, and the quality looks good. The wood is nice. And the design is kind of classic or different kind of design. It's very different, right? But why IKEA choose to do this? It's all about because their target audience, their target customers, is those young families or students or those people that are still early in their career life, right? So they have all those different kinds of needs, right? That they need cheaper but stylish kind of furniture. They have kids, so and then they work long hours, so they cannot really shop in the regular time. So that's why they have IKEA have all these kind of different packages, different from the furniture retailers. It does not mean that they cannot do the same thing, but they choose not to do so. So that's when you're making the strategies, you kind of make the trade-off. You need to know what to do, but also know what not to do. You choose not to do the same thing because you know that's the value you want to provide, right? So back at the end, this is kind of sum up the strategies. This session is that eventually you want to achieve the good performance, but then it depends on the competitive position you want to pick, and you need to have all the sets of activities and resources capability to support them, right? So important thing is that always link the strategies to the activities you are doing. All right, I think let's wrap up the sessions. So I will turn it back to Mark.
All right, Li Wei, thank you. It's a shame we got so little time left because I'd like to make everybody stay here and listen to me tell you for about an hour about how important strategic planning is to the consortium and all our references material. But we'll just have to talk about that some other time. So again, thank you so much. So this concludes, I didn't see any questions popped up. in the chat box. So I think this will conclude the instructional portion, if you will. So we've got just a few more minutes left. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen again. And this. So again, so of course, thanks to all of our presenters today. You'll have contact information for them and myself within a few days, so we can, as part of the resources sharing. I definitely want to thank one more time all our sponsors for this, Old Dominion University, who provides us so more than just Dr. Chen, but we're happy with that too. Cape Henry Associates, Ed Myers is on board with us, and he was actually our original president of the board for PDCHR. So I want to thank Cape Henry Associates very especially for providing their resources and time in our early days, as well as our ongoing support. And finally, Synergy by Design, Bill Pearsall, the chief cook and bottle washer there, and on board with us today, and he's also a member of the PDCHR board. So thank all of you for your support. Most of you already know this, but there's tons of ways to plug in with PDCHR. We offer, and we've already got them lined up for the first quarter of 2021, our workshops, seminars, roundtables, all free. Typically the second Wednesday of every month. We move them quarter to quarter if they're at noon or at 6 p.m. Low cost annual symposium and MasterClass that you participated in today. Oops. And now we have to look at it again because we're inside our mouse. That happened. Learn more, and I'll put all this stuff here in the chat box shortly. Or actually, you'll get it in the resources email coming out in a few days. Finally, we've got like actually, we don't have any time for any more questions. We'll just have time for me to prattle on. It's almost time for lunch, so I have one final ask for